Okay, good morning and welcome to today's Jerusalem Press Club webinar briefing. I'm Talia Dekel. With less than 48 hours before voting booths in Israel's general election are open, the candidates are scrambling to gain last-minute support. Joining us today to make sense of the final public opinion polls published is veteran pollster Professor Camil Fuchs, head researcher and advisor at the Dialogue Polling Institute and pollster for Israel's Channel 13 News. Professor, thank you so much for being with us. I know it's a busy time.
Thank you.
So last time we spoke just over 2 months ago, you said that anything can change. What are the major shifts in public opinion trends over the last 2 months?
Well, it's not clear that it's public opinion trends or it's about the decision of the people, how they are going to split the vote between the different parties. That is not only the public opinion. The public opinion remains divided between the two groups, those for Bibi, no Bibi, and so on. But within those blocks that we have, we see now that they collapse to some parties which are different than what it was several months ago. For example, if we take for the number the new parties that they were Yamina and Sar, those are the two parties that were created after that, big parties which started with 20 seats in the polls or something around 20 seats in the polls. Now you see a decrease in those, and you see some of them going back to Netanyahu and to the Likud party.
Understood. So Netanyahu really seems to have upped his game over the past few days, even though he's very much still in the lead. What exactly is he worried about?
I don't. Well, he's worried about the magic number 61. That is what he's worried about. It's not only about his own party, but he's worried about whether he's going to have a coalition of 61, and that is going to be, if he's going to get it, that is going to be a coalition of the right wing, right wing together with the religious parties. So those are together, and according to the computations that they were done by pollster around, they say now it has about in various polls it has about between 59 to 60. It was only one poll when he was 61, but those polls include Yamina in the group of Netanyahu. And it makes sense that they are going to go together, but Bennett from Yamina, he said that he doesn't want to he doesn't want to promise that he is going to go to one side or another side after the election.
Okay, according to what you've seen so far, who won't pass the threshold and where will their votes go?
Well, we had something that was called 4 by 4. That means there were 4 parties which were very close to 4 seats, and 4 seats are the threshold that we have in our elections. It's 3.25% of the votes. That is a threshold, and that's about 4 seats in the parliament. So we had 4 parties that something like several weeks ago. They were all of them at about 4 seats in the polls. However, 2 of them are a bit above the threshold, and it looks like they are out of the danger of not passing the threshold. 2 of them are much more in the danger than the other. So I'm going to mention now what I'm talking about. On the right side, we have the party which is the religious Zionist party. That is a party of Smotrich and Ben Gvir, and now we see that he has now probably even more than five. He's going to finish, because we see the momentum, and he's going up, and probably is going to hit more than 5. And now when we check where the votes came from, and those probably votes are from the Yamina party. So you see a trend of the people of the religious part, the religious voters, the Zionist religious, not about the Haredi, but the Zionist religious, moving toward the Smotrich and the Ben Gvir, which is the religious Zionist. The other one is on the other side of the spectrum, and that is in the Arab sector. In the Arab sector, we have a party which is Ram. Now, the Ram party is basically an ultra-religious party in the Arab sector. So that is why it's splitted from the joint Arab party, and they had a discussion among themselves about problems about homosexuals and about women and so on. And so this party started with to be below or above the threshold, and now it looks like it is quite safe above the threshold. On the other hand, the 2 parties in the left or in the center left, which are Meretz and Kahol Lavan, and that is the name of the party, they are probably much more in danger of not passing the threshold. It's not clear if it's going to be one of them or both of them, because what happens is that people will go and try to save one of them, and they may take votes from the other because they are from the same pool of voters who consider themselves to be in the center left.
Understood. One of the things, obviously, people were talking most about that will impact the results of the election are voter participation. We saw it in the last. I'm sorry. We saw it in the last round, round 3. There was 71% voter participation in Israel, and that's actually the highest of the 3 rounds. What do you expect will be this time, and how will it impact this election?
That's certainly an enigma, and we can never predict exactly what is going to be the participation in usual times, and in the Corona times even more so, because we don't know if what is going to be the participation of the people, if they are going to be afraid of the Corona or to gather together in the polls or not. So we don't know that. However, it is likely that the percentage is going to be lower than the 71% that you mentioned before. But what is important is that to look at not at the overall percentage of participation, but on the differential percentage of the differential in various population. So if, for example, in the Arab sectors, and especially in the Negev, in the southern part of the party, there are going to be a lot of people going to that, or going to vote, then the Ram has a very good chance of passing the threshold and even getting 5 or even 6 seats in the parliament. On the other hand, if in the Arab sectors the percentage is going to be low, they may be in some danger. And also, we saw, for example, that in the previous election, in the area of Tel Aviv, for example, the level of participation was quite low, and that of course hurt the center left parties. So we don't know what is going to happen now.
Okay, do you expect any population or specific party to have a surprise impact on the election? Something that you know, in the past was maybe the pensioners. Anything that could happen this round?
Well, I don't know what is going to be. That means if, for example, the Licha party, which that is the economic party called, if they are going to pass the threshold, that is going to be quite surprise. We were, of course, a lot of people try to convince them to leave the race before that, because they say they have no chances. But you don't know; it may happen, because in our polls they are at about 2.1%. So they are quite far away from the 3.25, which is a threshold. But that could be a surprise in the party. I don't think that anything else is going to be a surprise. For example, if Netanyahu's party, the Likud party, are going to go with a momentum, and instead of the 30 seats that are predicted in the polls, they are going to be, say, 33. That is going to be, we are going to say that the polls were bad, but it's not a very big surprise.
Understood. So how accurate will the election night predictions be? Not the polls that we saw just now, but the polls they'll take on the spot.
We'll do whatever we can. We'll do whatever we can. I don't know. It is going to be more difficult than usual because it was decided, because of the corona, that all the poll stations which have more than 650 voters, registered voters, they are going to be split into two poll stations. So that will make more difficult for us to have the data that we want. And yes, I believe that is going to be probably one of the most difficult election nights that we are going to have. I'm not going to make excuses, but it's really a very specific, very different times that in conditions which are extraordinary conditions.
And of the votes that you said will essentially go down the drain for those parties that you said are likely to not pass the threshold, where will these votes go to which parties?
Well, they are going to be split among all the parties. the way that things go, they don't go to a specific party. It's like those were never, those are like they never voted, and all the others are going to be divided into a smaller number. So what is going to happen? So that the number of votes needed for each party is going to be higher. That usually gives advantage to the big parties. The big parties usually get a higher part, because that is what happens. They have a higher percentage, and so they may help or Likud on one side and Yesh Atid of Lapid on the other side.
Okay, we do have a question specifically from a reporter on Yesh Atid. Before the threshold issue, if Lapid does gain more support now during the actual voting process, on whose account will this come? On which of the parties?
Very likely that is going to be on from the parties which are struggling now to pass the threshold, which means Meretz and Kahol Lavan. They may even take some of them from the Labour Party. That is going to be the fight among themselves. So since he knows that, he doesn't attack those parties. So he decided not to try to get too much from those parties, because that could be good for him but bad for the bloc.
Okay, another question. Labor leader Merav Michaeli has yet to endorse Yair Lapid for prime minister. Does this keep the door open for Labor to actually enter government with Sal or Bennett?
If they are going to be invited, she will certainly go to them. But that's not because if there is going to be a coalition, which is not Netanyahu's coalition, it's very likely that they need both Sar and Bennett and Yeshat and Lapid together, because otherwise they don't have the votes. So they are going to be all together, and probably including the Labour Party.
Understood.
But even that is probably not going to be enough. So they are going to have to need from outside some support, maybe from the Arab vote.
Okay, we talked a little bit about voter participation, but we have some more specific questions on that. We saw obviously a huge increase in participation in the demonstrations against the prime minister last night. How is this going to
20,000?
Right, the numbers have varied between 20,000 up to people
Right.
even saying 50,000. We don't know the true figure, but in any case, they've risen quite a lot over the time right before the elections. How will these protests impact the elections, if at all?
It's hard to know. I believe that they convince those who are already convinced, but certainly it has an impact on the atmosphere. But I believe, from what I know, of course, it gives some. It fuels the sentiment of those which are anti-Bibi, but also on the other side, they say that they are doing that too much, and it may be that is one of the reasons that both the Likud and Netanyahu and Lapid are getting now some more votes. So maybe that is going to increase not going to affect maybe the votes, but maybe the voting participation. That may happen. that those kind of demonstration may help the voting participation, just wake the people up.
Right. Although it is hard to imagine larger than 71% voter participation. That's pretty.
No, certainly not. But larger than it would have been without those demonstrations.
Understood. Another question that's come in about your experience in following campaigns over the years. Have you seen anything quite like Yair Lapid's campaign, in which it seems that he's been pretty quiet and hasn't even given interviews recently?
Well,
Anything?
I don't know. We have to ask Mark Mellman. That is, it works for the moment, because what happens in this case is that Netanyahu tries to bring Lapid to say that he is a candidate for the prime minister. So that is what he said. It's Netanyahu versus Lapid. He doesn't say it's Netanyahu versus Saar or Bennett, because Saar and Bennett are on the right side. So he wants to put we are the right and he's left. So that is what he wants to put. Bennett is not in this game. He doesn't declare that he is a candidate for the prime minister, and he doesn't gives a lot of interviews, and he gets the votes from the previous Kahol Lavan, because those are the people that he is the best option for them.
And what are your thoughts on perhaps changing the system in order to prevent this this political stalemate that keeps occurring and seems to continue?
It's above my possibility. What do you mean, to change the system of elections?
Yeah, to change the party system.
Well, we need for that we need a constitution. I don't know. We have to pass laws, and that's very difficult to pass them in the Knesset, and to get a majority of the people the people to agree to such a big move. It's something that we can think about, but I don't know if it has any probability of success.
Okay, so keeping in mind that there is very low probability of that happening, what is the probability of another election this year or anytime soon?
Let me put it this way. I'm going to predict that is not probably the main possibility. I believe that the probability of getting a coalition in the right has a higher probability than having new election, and the having a coalition in the left has even lower probability. So that is what I would say. I don't know how much, what are the chances. The chances are certainly not zero, but I think that the probability of getting that Netanyahu is going to succeed to form a government, somehow it looks like the probability of that is higher than the probability of new election.
But will this likely narrow coalition actually succeed in governing for a certain amount of time, or will this coalition itself not last either?
Well, it's going to last, but things are going to happen during even the first several months of the new, if it's going to be a new government, things are going to happen. For example, it's going to be the Netanyahu's trials and so on. So it's hard to predict for how if the coalition is going to be strong and remain for 4 years, or it's going to dissipate in the middle.
Okay, Professor Camil Fuchs, thank you again for your time today. And who knows, perhaps we will speak again later this year.
You are very welcome.
Okay, and for the reporters on the line, please make sure to join us tomorrow at 4 p.m. for a joint briefing with Bar-Ilan University and the Government Press Office, during which we'll hear very important last-minute analyses from leading experts in the field, as well as a technical outline from the Knesset's Central Elections Committee. And I'd like to also thank my colleagues, JPC Director General Uri Drummy and JPC Press and Programs Coordinator Rachel Legziel, for facilitating this briefing. Goodbye for now. We hope you enjoyed that briefing by the Jerusalem Press Club. If you did, like the video and hit the subscribe button to stay up to date with all of our future content.